I don't know if you have followed up Usain Bolt or read any of his stories, but Usain Bolt doubted himself many times. And his coach was the one who had to let him know that, listen, man, you're overthinking. And stop telling yourself you're this, you're that. You get on the track and execute what you have learned. You're doubting yourself, but you've been doing this all along. Why suddenly now you're going to doubt yourself? His coach had to be there, not just giving him techniques and methodologies and giving him several repetitive movements to make, exercises to make, but this coach was mentally preparing him to be strong, because that is where you get the greatest fight in your mind. And as a performance coach, I try to develop a relationship with my clients so that they understand that this is not about basically just performing. I'm not necessarily here to just get you to perform. I'm here to get you to be.
Herzlich willkommen zum English Coach Podcast, präsentiert von trainingtree.de, die personalisierte Lösung im Bereich Erwachsenenbildung. Und jetzt dein Gastgeber. Er sagt zwar immer ich und dich, ansonsten ist sein Deutsch fantastisch.
Hello, my name is Antonio Patterson, and I want to welcome you again to another self-sponsored independent episode of the English Coach Podcast. Season 4 starts after this one, and I want to send an extra special shout out to all my supporters, fans and friends, the people who have accompanied me on this wonderful learning journey, all the people who have helped me to keep the promise that I always make, to take my usual relaxed, accessible, human approach to your learning experience. Today, it's all about the language of the job interview, where we explore the spoken language, the body language, the language that brings the best version of ourselves to the fore. Today's episode even looks at the language we speak to ourselves in preparation for that job interview, to evoke the best attitude in your listener and the best attitude in you. At the very end, there's a surprising twist in store, so do be sure to stick around if you want to experience more. It is episode 50 today, and the show has evolved, though living the language still means that my goal is to help you to keep the language skills you've learned, to help to keep you engaged with a little information and entertainment. This is not a course, it is a conversation. Real interests, real things, and real personalities from wherever you are. Okay, Mr. Philip Clarke, so nice to have you here. I'm looking at this software right now and it's calling you the Witty Resonator. It looks like a word. It looks like a name that you would make for yourself. Yeah, when I saw Witty Resonator, I was like, oh my goodness, this fits to what I understand or who I understand the Philip to be.
I guess they know that I'm coming on.
Okay, all right. Well, lovely people, a little Jamaican flavor there for you. Today, we have the benefit, we have the luck, we have the pleasure of hosting none other than Philip Clarke, the Director of Culture and Arts, or as we might say, the Director of Arts and Culture at the esteemed University of Technology, Jamaica, my first university.
Great.
And I am very happy to have you here, sir.
My pleasure.
Yes, well, I do hope so. I do hope so. How are you doing? Otherwise?
I am well, despite whatever challenges that there may be. I am doing well. I'm giving thanks. And this is a good day to express oneself because we are alive to do it.
Yes. You're giving thanks. There's this word mindfulness that I always talk with, I think on the last program I said I'm always mindful of mindfulness. And I don't want to trivialize it, but, I'm no professional in that, I can't tell exactly what it involves, but I know that it definitely involves some kind of living in the now, and that in itself, living in the now suggests a kind of gratefulness, giving thanks. So it's good to hear that.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, the last time we were together on stage, it was for episode 19, Surviving It. I called it back then Jamaica Speaks Paradigm Shift. Yeah, I
Right.
remember that. And now, today, it's a little bit different because, as far as I know, as far as I've seen, you have managed to start your own show. Lights, camera, real life. A story, a show that chronicles the life of people who play many roles in life and the lessons learned along that journey. Am I correct, sir?
Absolutely.
How's it going? How's it going with that show? Ein erfahrener Praktiker im Tanz, künstlerischer Leiter und Produzent von Theaterstücken, Performance Coach, preisgekrönter Schauspieler und derzeitiger Direktor für Kunst und Kultur an der University of Technology Jamaica, teilt mit uns in 2 kommenden Episoden. Wir sprechen über Rollen, wie sie sich auf das Vorstellungsgespräch beziehen und treten in einen, wie ich es nennen würde, grundlegenden Diskurs ein über den Ansatz klar erkennbarer Standards für das jamaikanische Tanzgenre zu etablieren.
It has been doing, I started off the show during the pandemic as an Instagram live interview conversation with a couple of my friends and persons who I thought I could reach out to, who to me epitomize the playing of roles and the wide variety of roles that they play. And I said, why not call them up and ask them to share about their journey, but more so about the lessons learned on that journey. And I actually had 17 episodes. I did 17 episodes. I was so nervous about doing the first one. And it turned into 17 episodes. And then somebody said to me, why don't you turn it into a podcast? So I agreed and I went ahead. And now today it's a podcast. Lights, camera, real life.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you're saying if I go to Google and I give in these words, lights, camera, real life, then I will land on your page? Because I know you must have a web page.
The website is www.philipalclarke.com. And you can find the podcast on about 6 platforms. You can find it on Spotify.com. You can find it on Google Podcast. You can find it on Overcast. You can find it on Breaker and several other podcast sites.
Well, Philip, I'm proud of you. I was a little bit surprised. Well, I wasn't so surprised about of course I am. I wasn't so surprised about the Instagram because, that's a little bit easier to do. But producing a podcast I know what's involved. I mean, I just got to my episode 45. My shows are long and also diverse. It's also similar in terms of the diversity of personalities that I invite to my stage, so to speak. Again, I'm honored to have you on stage today again. But now that you've said clearly the name of the show and the website, I want to know, show people on my show, on my stage, what is it that makes it worthwhile also checking out your show? Yeah. That is what I want to do today. So, yes, man, I prepared 2 questions for you.
Okay.
My show's a little bit different, whereas I started it in support of people who want to hold on to their language skills. And I bring success stories, of course, in form of personalities onto my show, and they share with my listeners how best to, well, let's say, achieve that kind of a sustainable language acquisition. Whereas after the classes, it grows on its own through reading and primarily on my show through free time activities like cooking, photography, professions, all sorts of different things. I work a lot with dancers. I work a lot with people in the arts. A few scientists have been on my show, mathematicians, engineers. All these people use English as an international tool for communication, right? And you are here today because I thought two reasons. I've been shaping this forever. The language is usually used in an international context. Anybody who wants to work internationally, yeah, as a diplomat or in business, in politics, whatever, they use the language. And in many occasions, or on many occasions, there's a job interview that happens first. And English plays a huge role. A lot of people, they have a lot of stress preparing for that job interview because it's a process that invites them to communicate in English, also testing their ability not only to do normal communication, business stuff, but also to negotiate. And the preparation for such is quite a feat.
Right.
Yes, preparation for job interviews in English, on both sides, on the side of the employee or the proposed employee and also the employer, are, well, let's say, part and parcel of also what I do here. I have the applicant and also the person hiring to conduct these interviews efficiently. The question is, culture plays a specific role. And the reason why I wanted to ask you to come on the show is because I'm aware of the fact I'm Jamaican, yeah, born and bred and butter, yeah, still Jamaican. I haven't lost my twang, yes. I think I think I haven't lost it, but I want to know, yes, from your point of view. I know the requirements, the expectations, the preparation, the attitudes, or even the roles that you assume as an applicant taking part in a job interview in the Caribbean, I'd say, not necessarily only in Jamaica, I'd say in the larger Caribbean and in maybe even the Americas. What is it like from your experience? Bringing in the role play, bringing in as I said, the attitudes and so on. What is it like?
Well, first of all, let me start with a story or two,
It's
if you allow
a
me.
good way, of course.
Many years ago, when I was just settling in to what I call my professional career as a communications lecturer, I was very conscious about the fact that I needed raw examples to help my students to actually see and to understand and to recognize what is it that persons require of you, employers, potential employers require of you when you're going to go into an interview. Now, I'm a lecturer of communication and I want to be able to not just give them what the textbook says, but I also want to be able to share with them my experiences and to share with them real life experiences about what it means to really be in an interview and how to conduct yourself. And so, what I did every summer as a teacher, I would write applications. I would write out job applications and apply for jobs all over the place. Fortunately for me, I would get a call to attend an interview. And when I go to the interview, I pay a lot of attention to the questions asked. I pay attention to the type of interview, how it's conducted. I pay attention to the panelists on the interview, whether I was being interviewed by one person, I was interviewed by a panel of persons. And those things were very instructive to me. And so I prepared a little thing for you so that I could be able to at least impart some of the things that I have learned and some of the things that I have been taught as well about how to actually prepare for an interview. And one of the things I want to start off with is this. I want everybody to recognize that an interview is just as much about you finding a good fit for your own work environment as it is about the company finding a good fit for the role. So it's very important that you don't, in Jamaica, sometimes we want a job so badly and we are just anxious and excited about getting a job, but we don't really consider, will this environment, this new work environment, work for me? Will it be an environment that helps me to exercise and to actualize my own giftings, my own personality? Will it be a good fit for me to express and to grow myself in this environment? And as you pointed out, it's also for the employer to recognize, when you come to an interview, I want to know more about this person. And is this person good for me and for my company? Will they ensure that it grows they grow my company? And so when you're going to an interview, try to at least ask yourself these questions. And one of the second way in which you're going to know, help yourself to answer those questions, is by looking carefully at the job description. Not just the title, not just the title. When I was applying for the position of Director of Arts and Culture at University of Technology, and I can share my own experience.
Please.
Of course, when I look at arts and culture, and having been in the industry for over 20 years prior to applying for that position, I know I have a fair idea of what the performing arts industry is about. I know a little about the entertainment industry. I know about culture of Jamaica and selling and preserving the culture of Jamaica. I have put on productions of my own. I have written scripts. I have directed. I have choreographed. And I have done all of these things that help me to be prepared to be an expert, one would say, in the area of arts and culture. But then when I scroll down and look at the specific job description, I recognize that it involves a lot more administrative abilities, and and that is something that I may or may not have had a lot of experience with, but I certainly have done enough to understand the whole gamut of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to sit myself down and ask myself, okay, managing people, managing a staff, writing reports, and reporting to somebody else. Then you have to think about, how do you write proposals to get sponsorship for funds? How do you put on fundraising events? How do you design and develop cultural activities and cultural programs, academic cultural programs, to be able to benefit a whole population of not just students, but staff as well? So I'm now getting into a whole different thing. So I'm encouraging everybody, when you are going to apply for a job, look carefully at the job description and ensure that when you go into that interview, you can answer as best as possible to those objectives or those descriptions that make sure that you're the right fit for that particular job.
Understood.
Now, if you don't know the answer to some of these questions, I suggest the third thing you do is this: seek out professionals in those areas. Seek out persons within the industry who you think would have some experience in those areas, and talk to them. Try to find out, how do they do their job. Collaborate with industry professionals and see how they, for example, would have gone through an interview, or they may be conducting interviews, and get an idea of what are some of the tests and some of the types of interview questions that may be asked. Sorry, you were saying something?
No, no, no. I mean, when I invite you to take the stage, I mean that you should take the stage. So I'm listening to you. I'm listening to
Okay.
everything you
Okay.
said. I mean, I've been taking a little, a few notes here on the side, but I had no reason to interrupt what you were saying. All of it makes good sense.
Okay. The fourth thing that I was going to say is that consider your why. Consider your why. Why am I being interviewed for this job? Why am I taking up this opportunity? In life, you talk about having your vision board, and your vision board must always answer the question, what is your why? Why do I want to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve? I want to say at this point, I encourage everybody to have a vision board because it sets you on a particular path and it makes you make decisions away from the clutter of the confusion that may be in your head, and it makes you recognize, okay, this is either where I'm going to go or where I'm not going to go. And so when decisions come up, when opportunities come up, you can definitively say, this is something that I want to do and this is something I don't want to do because it doesn't fit on my path. Why are you being interviewed for this job? As I was shared with you before, having had over 20 years in entertainment and culture and the arts, I pretty much had decided that this is the path I want to take. And it was a path that allowed me to develop my strengths. And it was a path that allowed me to examine what my weaknesses were. And so I recognized that I should focus on my strengths. I should focus on what is it that makes Philip, what is it that makes Philip tick?
Mm-hmm.
I should focus on that. But I should also focus on making my strengths, using my weaknesses to make me stronger. So allowing myself to develop on my weaknesses so that I can be a stronger person in the area that I am. So I told you I'm applying for this position of Director of Arts and Culture. It's an administrative position. And I recognized right there and then that I may not have administrative experience. So that constitutes a weakness somewhat. However, I have the experience of managing persons, managing students, managing persons in a company. And so I use that experience and that knowledge and bring it to bear on what I'm about to go into. And allow myself, open up myself to learn. Every single time you answer your why, you must come out with an answer that helps you to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I may not know everything. I may not know what there is to know of everything about this job, but there's something about this job that's going to make me go to a higher level and a higher step, move on, move up, and become stronger. Next, this is probably something people have heard many times before. Research. Research the company. Research the company that you are going to be applying for. Because one of the things, and I have been in interviews recently as a panelist, and one of the questions I ask the interviewee is, how much do you know about us? Or what have you heard about us? And tell me something, where did you hear about us? And what information do you know? And what is the value of the information that you have and how you use it? How will you use it in this company? And that's a question you get varying answers. But one of the things that impresses interviewers is that you are able not just to tell them about the company, but you're able to identify things about the company that you think you can actually add value to, and you can bring better ideas to the forefront. Now, there are several ways of knowing about a company. A company has most companies these days has a lot of social media pages that you can go on and you can do a lot of research and you can pull down information and you can see their products, you can see their services. You can actually ascertain sometimes the company culture. And company culture is something that you would need to have a grasp of. Well, maybe not a complete, absolute grasp, because you really won't know until you get into it. But sometimes you can ascertain company culture from looking at some of these social media pages. And there are a wealth of information, a wealth of sites out there for you to grasp information from. You can see how people value people on the job. You can see how they think of the customer. You can think how they value the product that they're offering. What is the niche that they participate in? What's the methodology that they use? And what are some of the language that they use to communicate with their audience? So you get an understanding from there and then that if you're going to go into an institution like this, there's a certain language that you have to use. There's a certain culture that you have to abide by. There are products and services. What is the range of the products and services that they offer? You're going into an educational institution. You have to know what is their mark that they have made in history. The University of Technology Jamaica as opposed to the University of West Indies Jamaica. What distinguishes the two? What is it that makes them stand out internationally in an international space? And how do you now fit into that space? How can you now add value to that institution that will make them go higher and higher? If you examine these things, rest assured, there are questions that are going to come into the interview that you would already be prepared for because you looked at that. Consider the answers to these questions. Consider the answers to the common interview questions like, what is your strength? What is your weakness? That's a common interview question. And I want to pause there to say this. And this is something I've learned throughout my interviews that I have had. Whether or not I took the job, these are some of the things that I learned. At first, when I was asked the question, Mr. Clarke, what is your strength? What do you consider your strengths? What would you consider your weaknesses, Mr. Clarke? Initially, I thought they were speaking to my personality, the quirks or the idiosyncrasies that I have about my personality or about how I feel about myself. And I want to say very clearly that it is not about your personality. Your personality will come out in the way you express the answer to the question, But they want to know, as far as the job is concerned, as far as executing on the job is concerned, what are your strengths? So if you say, for example, I am somebody who is well organized. And there are times when, because of my attention to detail, I become anxious and I want to meet my deadlines. And because I want everything in a particular order, I put pressure on persons to get the information that I need so that I can meet my deadlines. And sometimes as a result of that, some people, because of the situations that they may find themselves in, I'm not cognizant necessarily of some of the holdups that they have in their department. And so I now have to become more aware of what is it that my colleague is going through in terms of a structural or a departmental issue so that I can pace myself or I can set more reasonable deadlines so that I'm able now to still meet my deadline without putting pressure on my colleagues. So you see what I did there? I not only spoke about what my challenge is, but I spoke about how I overcome my challenge with the strength that I believe I have. So what an interviewer wants to know is that they want to see how you speak about how you manage on the job, but at the same time, what are you doing about it? How do you really feel about it? And what are you doing to help yourself? And so if we were to employ you, how is it that you would get around these issues that you may be facing on a day-to-day basis? Because an employer don't want to know that they're employing problems. They want to know that they are getting somebody who will make the system that they have created flow well. They don't want any snags in the system. They want to know that, listen, I don't have to spend too much time on this individual because he already has things sorted out. Yes, we have to assist where things, fall apart, and hopefully things don't. But the point is, he seems to have a very reasoned, very structured way of dealing with issues so that he can help himself out of a situation.
Okay.
And so that is how you speak about your strengths or your weaknesses.
Yes.
Now, this phrase, selling yourself, can be quite uncomfortable for some people. Prostitution is the oldest institution, they say, but we're not talking about prostitution now in terms
Did
of
you
selling.
just say prostitution is a word that I'm gonna have to beep out, No, it's all right. It's all right. I was I was so fascinated with the hype around that word, So that's ask myself where it begins and where it ends. But anyway, Philip, listen to me. Are you still there?
Yes.
I recognize, I promised that I would be giving you the stage, and so I did. I recognize very well your passion, right? So I'm just gonna ask you, for permission to interject a little bit right here. No, let me just put together what I understood from what you just said. Well, first of all, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, right? You put a lot of focus on the self, as in thinking about yourself as well and your own personal needs. How you will fit within the organization is not just about coming in as some kind of object for the company, but also thinking of it as something that's going to help you also with your own self-actualization. That's the first thing. The second thing you spoke about, which is also going to lead us to the next topic for today, benefiting a whole population. I think you said, you spoke to the vision of the company. You made the comparison between, our very own University of Technology and University of the West Indies, how the stories differ, what their visions are, what they promise to the world and what they're giving to the world and so on. Finding out how they benefit, as you put it, a whole population. I'd expand that a little bit more, the whole, as a, not just the population of employees or students, but the whole world, and how you're going to help them to keep the promises that they have already been making, right? That is the second thing that I have. And then the third thing is, well, again, that speaks actually to the strategic vision of the company that you're going towards, how you're going to help them, thinking about that, asking the why, do I fit the cultural question and all of that, and where I actually want to go with this, Philip, Mr. Clarke, is how you help people to ask and answer these questions such that they will be ready to take on this interview, right? And the role that these people were, we're talking roles now, the roles that these people will have to play when they do get there. Is this gonna be a role evoked, as in after the preparation that you put them through, asking the questions and so on, they recognize that this role is already in them and they are ready. So it's a role evoked, a role called out of themselves, a role that already does exist because these are questions that they have already answered for themselves. They are already on that path, so to speak. Or is it a role that they have to play?
I'm very happy you asked that question, actually. I'm absolutely very happy you asked that question because I am also a performance coach. And in my performance coaching sessions, I also prepare persons for a job interview. Many persons come to me and they say, yeah, I know what I want to say. I have the qualifications. I know I'm qualified. But when I go inside the interview, I shut down. I don't know how to respond. I clam up and I am getting tired of it. So they come to me and you ask that you made a valid point about, are these things inside of me already? So one of the first things that I do with a client when they come to me to talk about, to get better at functioning in an interview, is that I ask them about who they are, who they think they are. And so we go into childhood. We go from the very things that make them tick, things that light them up. And I get them to acknowledge who they are and what are the things that they like. And I get them to accept themselves for where they're coming from. And you speak about roles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always said to persons that your childhood between ages 1 and 5, that's where your real personality is. That's where your real personality is formed. And what I want to do with persons who are now adults is to get them to go back to that stage of life when they were unbothered, where they lacked self-consciousness, where they were free with themselves, where they were unapologetic, where they were more or less confident. Yes, they were developing, but those fine, substantial years of your life, they determine who you are, who you really are. And so I get them to go back to that stage. And I will tell you this, that immediately the conversation starts to change. I find that the person speaking a lot more confidently. And I said, listen to yourself. So look at that. And sometimes when I stop them, that's when they realize, oh my God. And they go back into the shy person. And I'm saying, okay, I will not try to identify it again, but I just allow them to speak. Because what you want to do in an interview is to speak confidently, is to use conversational language, is to be able to be comfortable with yourself. And for you to be able to recognize that I have something that you want, and I would like to share it with you today.
Thanks.
So as an interviewee, you tell yourself that I am not begging, I am not screaming, I'm not desperate. And trust me, sometimes you're really desperate, but you can't play that role. You can't play that role while you're there. You have to believe that what I have is what you want. And that confidence will come out. It will resonate with the interviewer.
Understand. That is resonating with me. That's resonating with me, Philip. So yeah, man, what I'm trying to do, I'm sure that there are some of the listeners, there people are gonna be listening now and they're gonna say, well, that sounds really cool, but where do I start? Yes, do they come to your website? Do they give you a call? Do they like you on Instagram? What do they do?
Okay, so you can find me on my website. It's www.philip with one L, A-L, Clarke, no space, with an E.com. And on that website, you will see several opportunities to send me an email, to contact me. And I have a section that has frequently asked questions so that you can actually see what are some of the things that I do if you have any questions up front. You can also hit me up on Instagram. My handle is at Philip A.L. Clarke. And you can send me a DM right there as well. And I will be very, very happy to answer you. I'm also on Facebook as Philip Clarke. So you can see me, Philip Clarke Performance Coach. I have a Facebook page, and you can hit me up there, whether by DM or Messenger on Facebook as well. You can call me 876-428-8495, wherever you are in the world, and I will speak with you. Or you can WhatsApp me on the same number.
Fantastic. By the way, you're not on LinkedIn.
I am also on LinkedIn. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn as well.
How could you forget LinkedIn?
I don't know how I did. I'm also on LinkedIn, and that is the site that I really speak to a lot of the professional friends, but it doesn't really matter. I am all over LinkedIn. I am also available through my messenger on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you, Philip. That was good, for just in case there was anyone who wants to hook up. Now you know. If you don't know, now you know. Yeah.
And I'm also on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as well.
On Twitter, oh my God, man, you're tweeting all over the place.
That's right.
That's how we have to do it these days, man. That's how we have to do it. So I think I might have caught you there a little bit, but one of the questions, or the punchline in the question was, is this a role evoked, one which already exists within the person, this role that you have helped them to identify as having already been there, or is it a role played?
Fantastic question. Now, one of the reasons I came up with the podcast Lights, Camera, Real Life is that there are times when we are aware that we are playing a role, and there are times when we are not aware that we are playing a role. And I'll explain. When you become a father, a mother, you're a daughter, a son, you're not aware that you're playing a role because you take these things as just things that may or may have been thrust upon you. When you decide to become a businessman, an architect, a lawyer, a teacher, that's a role you choose to play in society. When you come home, you're a father, you're a mother, you're a sister, a brother, you're a lover,
You're a cat.
whatever it is.
I have a cat called Kitty Puss. Go ahead.
At that point in time, you are playing a role that you are naturally playing in a different environment. In a job interview, when I speak about selling yourself, I am referring to that when you're ready to sell yourself, that's the time when you have to take on a role. Because in truth and in fact, we don't obviously, directly, explicitly, deliberately go out every day selling ourselves. But we show people who we are by virtue of how we behave, how we speak, how we walk, who we interact with, cars we drive.
For sure.
We show people who we are, right? But we are not deliberately trying to tell people, okay, this is me, and we're not deliberately trying to sell ourselves to anybody out there. No. But the minute you assume the role of a profession, we know that this profession comes with a particular behavior, particular style, particular lifestyle, and so forth and so on. And so we act that out. I tell my clients, when you go into that interview, they must see who you are, but they must not see all of who you are. Because what you want them to see are the things that they need for their job, for their institution to grow.
Good point.
All the other things, you leave that alone. So this is where you have to understand the intricacies of role playing. And this is not being a hypocrite. It is not. But there are certain things that the job doesn't require you to do. And there are certain things that you don't need to be at this point in time.
That's a key point. That's a key point right there.
So that's why it's important to know yourself. And we talk about professionalism. Professionalism is just that, It is a role that is played in a particular environment. Because there's no need to be professional with your wife. There's no need to be professional with your husband. There's no need to be professional with your lover, your partner, with your children.
It depends on what you're playing at home.
Okay, well,
I'm just being playful, but
we can talk about that.
I do understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, and you've answered the question eloquently, Philip. Thanks for that, because I
Thank you.
know the whole idea. You touched on a very well, controversial word earlier when you said prostitution and comparing it to selling yourself. I mean, choice of words is important. It's an important thing because it can be a trigger to some people. They might feel sensitive when they hear that word, and it just it changes the whole trajectory
Correct.
of the conversation, and they might start making something else the issue when it's not. Right, but and even the idea of a role, some people think an actor, some people think someone not being authentic, some people, they don't see it as just wearing another hat. Some people don't even accept the fact that they they comprise many personalities, even many persons. Some people don't accept that, they're not ready for that yet. And
Absolutely.
they say things like, they say, silly things, from my point of view, like, well, that is not me,
Right.
and what I usually say is, well, I mean, the action logic, what is the action logic that facilitates or encourages you to be this person at this point in time? That changes.
Mhm.
We're living in a
Mhm.
constant changing, evolving, unfolding, emerging world. And I mean, that is the core of adaptation and being aware of where you are situationally. The
Right.
situation will demand you to wear a different hat depending on where you are. I mean,
Absolutely.
why am I gonna apply, let's say, for a job in a bank and then tell my interviewer that, well, I like to cook jerk pork? I mean, it's irrelevant.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Also, even if it's
Absolutely.
even if it is my best skill, they ask me what is my strength. I can't tell them that my strength is cooking the best jerk pork ever. Yeah, I can do that. That's a very simple
Mhm.
example, but I understand what you're
Mhm.
saying, but just kind of want to frame it and bring it out because there really are people like that. They go out there and they say, "Well, that is not me," and I'm like, "Well, do you know who you are?" As even people, young
Ah.
people, they're like young people, 20s. They're
Ah.
like, "Yeah, that is not me." I'm like, "What the hell? You're you're creating yourself every day. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you don't know who you are." I could be wrong, but I mean, I do have, of course, I can only be speaking from, the wisdom of my own experience. Yes. And it's only true for me, really. But I invite the question, I pose the question, put the question to them. I mean, really, do you really want to cage yourself into these notions of what you think you are,
Mhm.
based on the knowledge that you've
Mhm.
acquired in 20 years?
Mhm. And that is something that I have come to terms with myself, because I look back at my life in the last 20 years and I recognize that, well, Philip, you are doing something completely different than what you imagined yourself you would have been doing then now. And so I said to myself, this is the evolution. This is the evolution of Philip. I never imagined myself doing a podcast and hosting a podcast. I never did that. I did want to do a TV program, be a host.
Aha.
And so maybe the things that are in your mind sometimes, they find a way of just morphing into different things, which is why the vision board, as I say, is so important, because it seems to push you in a particular trajectory. And if you are, but you see, you have to allow yourself to take the different paths. I saw somebody put a quote on Facebook this morning. It says, write your purpose in pen, but write your path in pencil.
Oh, I like that one. I think I will borrow that one, I think I'll borrow that one. But
Yes.
it's cool, man. This whole visualizing thing, you can look at it in two ways. You can look at it hocus pocus and mystically and say, well, the universe is gonna give you what you want. You can look at it that way, and it works for some. For others, they say, well, they document the things that they want in life, and every day you're actually also subconsciously, that's also scientific, looking out for the little helpers that come to you, that present themselves every day. So, one way is hocus pocus, mystical visualization, and the other way is scientific, because you actually are looking out for the things that will help you to keep on this path. So, whatever the case is, visualization definitely works.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
whichever way you want to look at it. So, I definitely agree with you there. I have some more questions for you, though. Like the last time, I did suspect that we'd have another show. Maybe we can save them for the next time. I wanted to ask you some of the things that you believe that nobody expected that you believe. I
Yes.
wanted to ask you about your most influential books. I wanted to ask you about your view on political correctness. Yes. And I also wanted to ask you about that thing in childhood that helped most to make you into who you are today. But you can pick one or two if you want. Anyone that you want, you can pick it. Then we switch to the next topic.
Wow. Wow, Ian, this is really a full interview. It is almost like a full course meal. I've never been able to delve so deeply into the recesses of my journey.
Well, you can save them for the next time, You can save them for the next time. So at least you have the questions there, hopefully, for who's listening, might tune in next time. And
I wanted to finish up on my job preparation
yes,
tip.
we can come back to that, yes, because the question is as a how you help people, because you're a coach, you're also working, from a business standpoint.
Right.
We talk about helping people. I help people. Sometimes I help people free. Sometimes I help people at a charge. But whatever the case is, the promise I make, I have to keep. So what I want to hear from you is now how you help people, how what's your value proposition.
As a performance coach, and I know that the term performance coach may have dual meanings in some people's minds, especially from a corporate perspective. But my role as a performance coach deals with helping persons to make better presentations, whether it's a speech, a song, a poem, a presentation at their workplace. That's generally what I try to get people to do. And it focuses on really building confidence, because you'd be surprised to know that a lot of people who are in very high powered jobs as well really are very afraid of speaking in public and suffer from speech anxiety many times and struggle with their own self identity and confidence at that level. You'd be amazed to know. And so people go for a one-on-one approach. And I like that because it gets people to speak about themselves. No, I'm not a shrink. I have training in psychology as a trained teacher, but I'm not a shrink. But what I want people to do is to be able to be honest and open about who they are. Now, one of the things about a job interview is that you feel like you have to put on a show, as you were just saying a while ago. We have to play roles. We feel like we have to put on a show. And in this day and age, when we're wearing masks, some of us have been wearing the proverbial mask for a long, long time. I don't want to get too much in that, but I want to say this, that practicing to speak, to use your voice, hearing yourself speak, hearing the language that you use, allowing yourself to recognize, oh, I pronounce certain words this way, or I pronounce certain words this way when I'm nervous. I get persons to identify their speaking style. So, for example, I allow them to read something and I see where they pay attention to the punctuation or not pay attention to the punctuation. And we would do it over again. I will get them to recognize what's on the page. Look at what's on the page. Take your time and let's look at what's on the page. You're not trying to make an impression right now. You're just trying to read and understand. And I want you to communicate with me as if we were just having a conversation. And you find that when persons read to you, read to me, I find what are some of the issues that they have. Either they lack or they don't pay attention to the H sounds. And in Jamaica, by the way, I just want to make this point that Jamaican Creole features in many of the ways in how we speak. So there are certain words that we do not speak readily, or certain letters we don't call readily in English in the Caribbean, in this Caribbean speaking countries, because of the way how English is different from Creole or Patois as we call it. Now, TH sounds, for example, are not present in Patois. We don't put our tongue between our teeth and say that. In Jamaican, we say that. So we have very hard D sounds, hard A sounds. And so when you tell us to say HOT, hot, Jamaicans and Caribbeans tend to say at. All right, my at,
Mhm.
right? And so these are some of the things that people begin to recognize when they come to my session, that they have not been speaking in the way and not been pronouncing things in the way they should be. And so their communication is not as clear. And so they recognize these things and we work on that. And it's not to embarrass, it's just to create awareness. And I suggest that they practice to speak so that they can hear themselves. Another thing is that when they're speaking, I get them to identify their own body language. Body language is very important when you're in an interview, because many persons, they say actions speak louder than words, but it is true most of the time. It's really true most of the time, because when you are talking, if you are saying, I have this qualification, I have that qualification, I have done X, I have done Y, but your body language suggests that you're not so confident about what you have done. Why do you seem as if you're apologizing in your body language when you're talking about yourself? Because some people don't like talking about themselves. And some people are not extroverts where they really publicize and promote themselves. So I have to get persons to a place where they begin to accept their achievements and their accomplishments and speak accordingly about it without coming across as arrogant. Belief in oneself is so important. There's a time when I was getting some young lady ready to do an interview. So I said to her, bring me your resume. So I went through her resume and I looked at how she listed some of the things and what she had done. And I said, this is all that you have. You have a degree as a secretary in secretarial studies and so on and so on. So I said, what about your skills? She said, what, sir? I said, what about your skills? What about your abilities? What you mean by that? Well, what do you do well? What are some of the things that you know you do well and have the ability to do very well? Well, sir, I can make curtains. I said, what? You can make curtains? Yes, sir, I make them all the time in my house. I mean, I make a valance and I make curtains. And I said, really? So I said to her right there and then, write on that resume, you are an interior designer, decorator. I said, excuse me, sir? I said, yes, put it down. You are an interior decorator. But sir, I said, listen, you make your own curtains for your own house. You coordinate the colors of the walls with your curtains. Hello, you are an interior decorator / designer. Wow, sir, I never saw it that way before. I said, yes. Are you a mother? I said, yes, yes, sir. Okay, so you was put down there that you have management skills. What, sir? So let me ask you something. Do you have to what time in the morning you have to get up? Well, I get up by 4 o'clock and I have to make sure they have breakfast and I get their clothes ready for school and I pack their bags and I pack their lunches and so on. I said, okay, you're a manager. You're managing those children and you're ensuring that they get to school on time. So you have management skills. Wow. She was like floored. She put them on her resume. She called me back about 2 weeks after when she sent in the resume and she said she got a call for an interview. I said, congratulations. Great. And then she went to the interview and she came back and she told me, she said, she said to me, she said, sir, to be honest with you, I thought it was a very good interview. Very good interview. The interview went well. But sir, I think my panelists may have been a little intimidated by my resume.
Yes, indeed.
Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. That is the end of it. Believe in yourself. And as a coach, when Usain Bolt is on the track, and I don't know if you have followed up Usain Bolt or read any of his stories, but Usain Bolt doubted himself many times. And his coach was the one who had to let him know that, listen, man, you're overthinking. And stop telling yourself you're this, you're that. You get on the track and execute what you have learned. You're doubting yourself, but you've been doing this all along. Why suddenly now you're going to doubt yourself? His coach had to be there, not just giving him techniques and methodologies and giving him several repetitive movements to make, exercises to make, but this coach was mentally preparing him to be strong, because that is where you get the greatest fight in your mind. And as a performance coach, I try to develop a relationship with my clients so that they understand that this is not about basically just performing. I'm not necessarily here to just get you to perform. I'm here to get you to be, so that you're always on. I always say to my students, be ready so that you don't have to get ready.
Yes, 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 yes. I agree with you. I agree with you, Philip. And I mean, there are a lot of parallels also to what it is I do here with language as well.
Yeah.
I teach people English, and it's usually English for work. But the most important part of my work, well, of course, depending on the lens that you look through, is developing the confidence. I've had so many situations where we do like role plays, speaking of roles again, and there might be one student who is, there's nothing to teach in terms of grammar, and another student who is not so strong in grammar, but they have confidence. And I say, okay, fine, we're going to do a role play. You're negotiating the sale of some particular goods. And in some cases, the weaker student who is more confident totally outperforms the ones who have the grammar and the vocabulary down, because they don't, it's paradoxical. They don't feel so, it's about the confidence. It's about the confidence. I tell people, listen, it's about, this is the one of the biggest challenges, because I try to give people the confidence not only to feel that they can do it, but also to feel as if they can continue on their own
Yes.
with their own development. And there's so many examples of that. Even when I used to do bodybuilding quite a lot. I don't know if you know, but I even used to work
Oh, really?
as a model in Jamaica for a while. Yeah, man, I was a model for a while and so on. But when I was in top form,
Mhm.
that was when I actually felt the most insecure, because
Wow.
I was always thinking, yeah, I could work the shoulders a little more, maybe I could work my back a little more, my biceps,
Wow.
all this self-doubt
Yeah.
that was always there, totally unreasonable. The problem though is because it is such a soft thing, and it doesn't well, yeah, it's German construction, but it doesn't allow itself to be measured so easily, this confidence thing. The question is, how do you get your people to recognize the value of what it is you're doing? I ask you how you help your people, right? I want you to tell me exactly now what somebody does, as a why would they come to you. Yes, you spoke about the resume building, you spoke about confidence building, finding the role, evoking that person that is already inside. It's actually my way of, that's how I understood it, and so on. But how do you help them for the interview, for example? Someone trying to, they want a big fat job at, I don't know, Scotiabank or somewhere, or a nice job wherever, and they need now you to hold their hand and to help them to find that place, that person who's gonna shine and be the best candidate.
Very perfectly good question. The first thing I say to my clients is listen, listen. When you go into the interview, listen to the question and don't try to rush to answer. Settle yourself, because you need, as I said at the beginning of this interview, you must remember that it's about you finding a good fit as well as they trying to find a good fit.
Correct.
So you have to go into that interview being be having full control of yourself. When you have full control of yourself, you take your time, to answer your questions on your own time. I mean, of course, you're not going to be dragging your feet. You're not going to be lethargic. You're going to have energy. You're going to have excitement, but you're going to make sure you listen carefully to each question. And if you need the question to be repeated, you ask the question to be repeated. Because you need to give yourself that time, relax yourself, slow down your heart rate, breathe more so that you don't get nervous. Nervousness gets into the way sometimes of your speech. It makes you tie your words up and they don't come out the way you want them to come out. Again, an example of speech anxiety. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing that you do. The second thing, though, is you would have had some experience. You would have gone into this interview with some level of experience and knowledge. Use that. You can't use what you don't have. And don't try to put on a show when you really can't. Because if you lie on your resume and if you lie in an interview and you get the job, they're going to know. And that's going to mess up your track record totally. So it's important to use what you know. Use what you have. In the process of my training, I get persons to show me what are some of the things that you're proud of that you've done in the past, and tell me about how you actually got it done, and what are the feelings that are associated with that experience. And I would see it coming out. I would see the joy on their faces. I would see sometimes regret. I would see pain, and I would say, that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see you come to terms with all those emotions. You went through it. You had pain, you had regret, but at the end you had triumph. That's very important. Accepting your emotions is a part of be confident, because
Yeah.
this is who you are. This is who you really are. This is you're a human being with all these different emotions. So when you
Exactly.
go into an interview and you're nervous and you feel like, oh my God, should I be here? You tell yourself, say, okay, well, I'm here now. I'm here now, and I may feel the way I feel, but I'm here now, and there's a reason I'm here. I'm going to give it my best shot. The morning of my interview, the morning of my interview for this job, they broke into my car and smashed my window and stole my spare tire and some other stuff out of my car.
I've experienced that.
Yeah. And I said to myself, okay, why?
It's a violation.
This sounds like something's going to break my spirit this morning, but I'm not going to make it get the better of me. I'm going into that interview and I'm going to give it my best shot.
Yeah.
So sometimes things will happen to you that just rub you the wrong way and just want to change your day. You are in control. Now there are a series of exercises that I go through with my clients about that, and it doesn't happen in one day, because not everybody gets to a sense of, okay, I'm comfortable with who I am. No, that doesn't happen in one day. It starts off by them telling me a story about themselves. Then it starts off by them telling me about something that they accomplished. And it starts off by them telling me something that they regretted, which is not easy. But then I ask them about, so where you think you've been going all these years? You put all these things together. Look at your life now. Look at where you're going. Look at how you performed in those different situations. Do you see a trend here? And there usually is a trend here, and there usually is. Because once we're not dead, it means that we're getting better at something.
Yes. Philip, there is, the same wisdom. For example, we're talking here now, there's an element of repetition that happens. I make no apologies for that, even in my language courses, it's just a part of it. And there's an element of repetition that is also happening in this interview. You're saying sometimes the same thing with different words, which is a good thing, because it means that, well, as I usually say, the same wisdom keeps coming back in different ways. That means there must be something right about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
think of systematic. There's a thing they call it systematic coaching. Of course, they call it systematic coaching style, and there is one stage of it that is called in German they call it Selbsterfahrung, which means experiencing oneself. You have to face those things about yourself first, and then ask yourself a question, or realize, okay, well, in spite of all these things, here I am today.
Yep.
you know and so you're saying then, when a client or a person who has a very important job interview coming up, they're thinking about working with a coach like you, a performance coach, because we've established that there is an element of role play, in the best terms possible, role play that is involved sometimes in a job interview. So you're a professional in that field, calling that out, working with it, helping people to come to terms with that idea, that notion of wearing a different hat for an event. So you can help them with that, also by taking them through this self experiential phase, so to speak, and also accept themselves, so they don't have to play a role, which is a new one, but just let a role be that has already been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know what, Philip, today was a wonderful conversation. I'm gonna still drop this preview, because there was another question that I had for you, and I suspect that probably you want to have some time to think about it, because this idea is something that I think I mentioned it over a year ago to you. This idea
Mm-hmm.
of a Jamaican standard. I mean, it rang a bell when you said to me, benefiting a whole population. What UTech has to offer, what the University of West Indies has to offer. From my part of the world, sitting here in Berlin, I say it's a melting pot. This city, the population is about the same as the whole of Jamaica, and the mixing of cultures here is phenomenal. I've been here for a while. I know what it is. Now, the idea of a standard. I mean, I see you as being in a position as a director of arts and culture at the University of Technology, someone who has experience and also connections in the field of the arts, in the fields of the arts. Yes, you are properly positioned to tell me the feasibility. Also, how much sense does it make? I mean, how realistic is it to kind of frame certain art forms from Jamaica, for example, some of the dance moves, yes, to make them into standards. The reason why that is important, to me, I see what happens, for example, in Europe. I mean, I'm sitting here, I live here, but we in Europe, we love to call things, we love to create standards here, and then we kind of like impose them onto the world as being the standard. And I mean, there are some systemic things that kind of makes that happen by accident, but in many cases it's also by design. And the resonance that Jamaica unleashes on the world, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a pity sometimes that I see some people doing some things and them call it Jamaica, and them do reggaeton, them call it Jamaica, and them some guy from somewhere else. I've met so many people here, them call themselves Jamaican. When I say something Jamaican, them no know. Yeah. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
So my thought was, how feasible is it to really, put some heads together and decide what is dance X, what composes dance Y,
Mm-hmm.
what is the character of dance Z, and define it in such a way that there is a standard, and everybody uses as a measurable, yes, replicable standard to which we, let's say, everybody sticks. For example, you have tango, the dance tango. Yes, there's Argentinian tango. I think there's just an attempt to kind of reclaim it somehow. But of course, then you have the European standard tango, and then you have also, now I'm here about the Russian standard tango, and so on. And I think it's such a shame, that everybody calling all heap of things what them do Jamaican. And us as Jamaicans, I mean, as we should own that standard, and we should stay loyal to it. You understand? So that is where I'm coming from. I mean, there's a lot. I'm kind of holding back some passion there where that is concerned. But this is an idea. This is something that I would love to see.
Well, Ian, let me first of all put it
This way.
into perspective.
Yes.
And I share your passion and your intent, but I just wanted to sort of explore what is actually happening. And at this point, I want to personally acknowledge the late Professor Rex Nettleford, for helping to preserve Jamaica's cultural heritage through dance. And I start there because the dance standard must serve a purpose.
With a small win is always a good way to begin. Check out the show notes for this episode at www.trainingtree.de/podcast or EnglishCoachPodcast.com. Like it if you like it, and if you don't, lie to me. Just kidding. But still, feel free to share it with a friend or keep it all to yourself. You can sign up to join the private listeners group. Give meaning to the things you think about the show by using the feedback form to tell me personally what you think. You can also use the voicemail function to send your voice. You'll have 90 seconds to speak. Say your name, a little about yourself, social handles and all. And perhaps get featured on an upcoming episode. Und jetzt ganz kurz auf Deutsch. Natürlich gibt es auch einen Link, um eine Beratung zur Buchung von Sprachkursen oder Sprachcoaching anzufordern. Es ist ganz einfach. Besuche einfach meine Webseite und klicke auf Kontakt. Und jetzt wieder auf Englisch. Ganz wichtig. Follow the show only if you feel like, so you know when there's a new episode available. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now.